First, I want to welcome you all to The Gateway.
The Gateway is a video podcast directed and hosted by staff members of Somerset Community College's student newspaper, The Bridge.
This is The Gateway.
Hi, welcome to The Gateway. This is Brandy.
Hi, my name is Allison, and I'm here to introduce our two guests. This is Miss Amie Slevin. She is an English instructor here at SCC, and this is Miss Erin Johnson. She is an administrative assistant for the Humanities and Fine Arts Department.
We're here today to ask them about the Common Read. For students who don't know, what is the Common Read all about?
Well, the Common Read is a title that different classes and courses read across the course of a semester. So it's a common title that we all share, and it kind of creates a sense of unity and community amongst us. We even try to get members of the community involved as well. So it's just a good way for us to create conversations that are pertinent right now. And right now our current title is Educated by Tara Westover, and we've had a couple different events so far this semester and this semester that are ongoing, and last semester that we've done as well. So,
Okay. How long has the Common Read been at SCC?
I think, honestly, I've only been here 2 years, and I think Amie actually we've been kind of started here
2
together.
years, yeah.
But I want to say that it's been around for about 5 to 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a few different titles. I know Hillbilly Elegy. Yes.
Celia the Slave.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was our last one for last semester. So we have
1984, I think, was one as well.
by George Orwell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we've got a couple different titles under our belt, and we're getting ready to start a new semester with a new title.
Mm-hmm. And the new title, which we have a Common Read subcommittee, which I am chair of. We just decided on Crucial Conversations. That's going to be the new title. And that is essentially about conversations to have with community members, people over sensitive and sensitive subjects like vaccines, racism, education, politics, and really how to have conversations like that with other people while respecting their side, and really just kind of how to cultivate that type of language. So.
How do you all go about selecting the books?
What we did this semester was a little bit different because of COVID-19. We weren't able to really kind of, have face-to-face meetings and really kind of promote it the way we wanted to. So what we did this year was we came up with a subcommittee with some faculty members, staff members, as well as students in the community, as well as alumni who were basically who were able to come together in a Teams meeting, and Erin was able to kind of send that information, send the invites out through Tracy Cassida.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so we got some people to kind of join on that committee, and through the help of Dion Hicks, we got a large form together, and so we found a couple books that our founder Marcy Randall recommended, some other staff members recommended, as well as students that have recommended. So we had about 10 titles, among which were The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, that was a top competitor. Dope Sick was top competitor as well. And, of course, Crucial Conversations. So our subcommittee narrowed it down, and then we kind of did a top vote from the top 3, and Crucial Conversations came out top.
So it's kind of a group effort to decide which is going to be the final selection. There's not like one person that makes the final decision.
Yeah, since we do want to kind of keep it with a community theme, we want to make sure that staff, faculty, community members, students,
everybody's
alumni.
represented.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So how do you reach out to students and community members to nominate a book or books?
Well, that was, like I said, that was the new challenge this year. But the nice thing about social media, and especially the virtual world now, is the fact that we were able to use Facebook, and Erin was really great at sending the message out through Facebook. And then also Tracy Cassada, who is the Dean of Students, also sent out emails to the students. And then we also utilized our alumni as well and kind of sent the information there. We also have our lovely posters, but since not a ton of people on campus right now, that didn't work. But we did rely also on word of mouth, and then of course faculty sending it out to students as well. So grassroots effort / virtual effort, I would say.
It's been kind of a tricky year for our first year to co-chair this and just kind of be leading a committee, but I think we've kind of done a pretty good job so far.
High five, Erin.
And I think we work pretty well as a team. So.
That's great.
Same.
Well, those methods that you all speak of that y'all used to get the word out, they seem like that they would have done well to get word out before the pandemic. So I'm sure emails, social media, those platforms were used to get the word out. What else did you do before the pandemic to maybe...
Oh, I wish Marcy was here. She would have gotten into it. To my knowledge, a lot of it was, putting posters up in the classrooms. Some teachers, from what I'm aware of, they would just kind of do like a little book talk in the classroom as well. I know that I actually kind of talked up some of the books in my classroom. This is my second year with SCC, loving it, by the way. One thing I did when I was, because we had a similar project, but it was called Community Read. I know, super far away, right? At the university that I used to work at, which was Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And we would have these things called book talks, where at the beginning of the class or near the end of class, you would literally take about 5 minutes just to kind of do a teaser and say, hey, this is the book that our department, our community is really interested in reading. Here are the issues that it covers. Some of us would tie in an extra credit assignment with it. Some of us would take different chapters from it. And last semester, that's what I did with Educated is I teach a narrative assignment for the first few weeks. And the way this was written, just from a teaching perspective and from a writing perspective, it was so beautifully written, and I personally liked how it didn't just look at formal education, but it really looked at education in such a broad, welcoming concept. Because we have a lot of students who are non-traditional students, traditional students, and things like that, and so it really kind of looked at education in such a broad term. So what I did for my class last semester was I brought in basically a chapter from the text, and I said, we're going to look at how a narrative should be written, how the exposition goes, how to bring in your audience, looking at the language and the tone. And so although I did not have the book selected for my class, we did use chapters as examples, and some of my students actually went ahead and just read it, and they liked it. So.
And I know, that also, that last year, before, COVID and the pandemic, our last common read titled Celia, a Slave, we were able to incorporate face-to-face events, and I think that generates a lot more interest amongst students and faculty as well, and kind of gets the word out there a little more when we were able to do that. I know with the John Sherman Cooper lecture that we have annually, we had the author of that book come and speak at that event. So I think that was a really good thing, and hopefully we can get back into that with the vaccine and everything coming out, and we can kind of get back to this place where we can all be together physically instead of virtually.
I love how y'all incorporate the community into it, like it's just one big countywide book club.
Right, and we've done things with the library. I know with Celia Slave, we did some different things. The library kind of partnered up with us and had some events too that we attended. I attended one. It was a poet laureate that came to the library to speak, and she did a really good job. So it is neat.
Do you all, as a committee or maybe as faculty or staff, ever have any kind of fear whenever selecting a book? I know Hillbilly Elegy was very controversial. 1984 is controversial. Was there any fear associated with this book?
Speaking as a faculty member, I did have a little bit of fear because this is, like I said, this is my first time kind of helping to select a book. At ODU, we kind of had a subcommittee from the English department, and then they were like, we're doing this because this is why, and this is why it's important. And it was like, okay, I guess we're doing this. I looked a lot on, again, from our founder, Marcy Randall, and see what she did with it. And then I think our past 2 chairs were Mike Goldman and James Taylor, right? Mm-hmm. And so I looked to see how they did it, and they're also part of our committee. So there was a lot of collaboration, which I really appreciated. And so I took that to the subcommittee, and then also a couple of the committee members in that subcommittee, that's vocabulary word of the day, I guess, we really kind of looked at different texts that could not only reach the students, but also texts that can be used in various disciplines, because a couple of the texts that were used seem to be primarily liberal arts and humanities. And of course, we don't just have liberal arts and humanities. We have trade schools, we have cosmetology, we have sciences and math. So we thought about incorporating other texts that would also reach issues or topics within those fields. So I didn't want to shy away from controversial things controversial topics because just from a faculty standpoint and from a personal standpoint, I think those need to be discussed, but we need to be able to discuss those in a fair, open manner. And I'm really glad we were able to decide on crucial conversations, because that teaches you and teaches students and everybody how to kind of create that environment. Dope Sick was it was literally between Crucial Conversations and Dope Sick, but I think Dope Sick we chose not to go with because it was a lot like Hillbilly Elegy in the tone. Yes, it does hit on a lot of problems going on, specifically the opioid epidemic. But I think we wanted to try something a little bit different, again, so that, if a math class or a science class or, if another class actually wants to use that, they can. So.
Is there a good participation from classes taking on Educated as part of their curriculum? Do a lot of classrooms just encourage their students to read this?
From what I understand, yes. We do have a couple faculty members who did use it in the fall as their actual textbook. I know the FYE 100s and 101s, a couple of them used it. I know a couple of the English classes, myself included, we use that as kind of like a model for narratives, tone. I believe a couple of the history classes used it as kind of a historical background for what's been going on in the Appalachia. So a couple of them have used it in the classroom and just in various content. So.
For those that haven't read Educated, could you maybe do a brief synopsis as to what Educated is about without giving too much away, if that makes sense?
Yeah, you're good at this.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. And it's been a while since I've read it, so I'm kind of rusty. But basically, it's about Tara Westover's journey into education and what her life was like prior to her education, and kind of how the way that she grew up shaped her into a person. But then whenever she went out into the world, was able to go out into the world and receive the education that she did, she started realizing that there were, she was missing out on some other viewpoints, and it kind of just opened her eyes to a completely different world. So.
Yeah, there are a couple instances where she grew up in a very small Appalachian town where I believe her father didn't trust the government, didn't trust formal education. I believe she had to stop going to school at 8th grade.
Yes, they didn't receive the formal education. I left out that.
No, that's
it's
okay.
a big deal. But yeah, she didn't receive a formal education. It was what her parents had taught her, primarily her mother, who was mainly influenced by her father. So,
right. But the interesting thing there, again, is kind of to differentiate between formal education and education in general. Because one thing I did appreciate was how she talked about helping out the family. She did a lot of work on their farm. She kind of really detailed like the different chores she had to do, like how she had to help with the horses, the different how she would just help make bread and things like that, and how she would help raise her kids. So again, very different type of education, life skills education, which is very important. So again, going back to the concept of viewpoints, as somebody who's been around formal education her entire life, myself, it really kind of gave me an idea of education in such a broad sense. I mean, you can go to school 24/7 or whatever, but life skills are essential. Life skills are important. Having good morals and faith, important. And again, I really liked how she kind of looked at that. But yeah, when looking at the viewpoints, she had a really interesting scene where she went to, I think it was Cambridge. Was that her grad school?
Yeah.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. I always forget this part. Was that where she learned about the Holocaust?
I think she actually learned about that at BYU.
BYU, okay.
I
Boise,
think it was a history class.
Boise State, you don't know.
Brigham Young.
Brigham Young, thank you. Because then she went to Boise State, right? Or no?
She probably did. I can't remember. It's a tiny detail, but
yeah. But but at Brigham Young, her undergrad, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, it's been a while since we've read it. Brigham Young, she didn't even realize the Holocaust was a thing. Like, no idea. That's how sheltered. Yeah, that's how sheltered she was. So when she learned about that in college, it gave her that different viewpoint. And we actually were able to watch her interview with. Do you remember the college?
I don't remember. I think it was in Indiana. It was an Indiana school, but she did do an interview with their college president, and it was really good.
Yeah, that was one of the events that we had. Yeah. But I remember they had this really amazing interview with Tara Westover, and that was one of our virtual events last semester. And she really kind of talked about how she, how sheltered her life was, and the fact that she was learning about these different these events that happened in history, and then also she had to kind of learn about how to integrate back into society. Like, I think there was one part where she's in the interview, she said a couple of her roommates would kind of have to remind her to shower or something before she left, and I was just like, again, life skills. It's just like, how do you forget to do that? But
Wow.
I don't mean to judge. That sounds really bad. But again, the way she presents this narrative is so open, and it takes you through the different viewpoints. And even when at one point she goes over to England and at Cambridge, and she said they were very open. They asked her about her experiences living on the farm, and she said in the interview that she didn't feel judged, and they just asked her about her background. And that, to somebody who was reading the book and everything like that, I felt really empathetic, and it felt like a very good reaction, especially with all the heat that's been going on with, all the different, extremist opinions that are going on, to have somebody who is open and says, oh, well, why do you think this way? Oh, well, why is this, how were you raised? And she said that was really, welcoming for her. And for somebody who was listening to that, I was just like, it was refreshing, I guess. So, but anyways, it was just a really fascinating interview about, and then also the text itself was just, the different viewpoints that were presented was just really, really well written and done. So that was a long response. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I like that.
Yeah, I can't speak for you, but I have heard of like people not trusting the government and not trusting a formal education, and how like that is such a big, that's a big obstacle in my point of view in Appalachia. And I feel like with that kind of mindset, like you said, the Holocaust, she didn't know it existed. I feel like that is such a dangerous mindset. That's just for me personally, because it was such a big event.
I'm sitting here thinking, well, rural area, we live in this, in the country. I'm like, well, maybe this could be a little relatable. But then whenever you put it in that perspective, that she didn't even know about the Holocaust, like.
In the civil rights movement, she talked about that a little bit too, and how they gave the dates. I think they had like an overhead projector or something, and she said that the instructor had the dates up there for the civil rights movement, and she thought it was a typo because it wasn't all that long ago, and her mom would have been a child at the time. And so that was just a big eye-opener for her. And I think it took a while for her to kind of, to start believing in herself,
That's
because,
a lot to
it's a lot of,
process all at
yeah.
once. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. You keep mentioning an event from last semester. What was the event?
Help me out, cut in, guess, if you need to.
No, you're fine.
So the event we was called An Interview with Tara Westover, and it was with a small liberal arts college, Mary Baldwin. That was it, Mary Baldwin College in Indiana. I lived in Indiana for about 10 years. I went to Butler University, so I'm like, it's an Indiana college, I should know this. But Mary Baldwin College, I believe, hosted the event. I believe their president kind of did the virtual event with her, and so we, they allowed people to purchase tickets, and so we got permission. To get tickets onto our, site. So we, we encouraged everybody to join. So we both joined, and other people did as well, and it was really fascinating. She. Tara talked a little bit about, or Miss Westover, talked a little bit about her, like I said, her life, how she read the book, even to the point where she said that she has to have boundaries with her family members when she goes back and visits with them, which I thought was very healthy, in my personal opinion. But that was the event that we had. I believe that was in October.
Right. And then also in the fall, we had the part 1 for the COVID and education, the panel event.
Yeah.
That we're getting ready to have
Yeah,
the
do you
part
care to
2.
tell us more about that? That was my next question.
Yeah, good tie-in, Erin. Nice
Yeah.
So the first panel we had was COVID and education, and that was, I'm trying to read off that because I can't remember.
That was back in November.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you. Hard to see from over here, but it was November.
It feels like last semester. I was just like, was that last year? That was last year. So that panel, we had a mixed variety. We had, I believe, 5 panelists. We had, one of the psychology teachers, Craylin Mills. We had Mr. Ron Mace, who is a communications professor. Then we also had James Taylor, who is...
I think James wasn't on that one.
Nope.
He's going to be on the second one. We
Okay.
had Sherry
Lovelace.
and then the 3 folks from the bridge. So.
Yeah, that's right, the 3 folks from the bridge, yeah. And so so we had a nice, diverse background there, and we talked primarily about, again, the pandemic, education, and really how people were responding to this brand new change, and again, the change from face-to-face classes to virtual classes, and kind of how the community was responding to that. So, yeah. And what we're going to be transitioning to now is COVID education and vaccines, kind of like the part 2, and that's going to be April 22nd. It is through Microsoft Teams, and it's live, and we do have that posted on our Facebook page, and it's at 5 p.m. And what we're going to be, and we have Ron Mace again, James Taylor, who's one of our political science teachers, and we have Billy Christopher Mopin, who's a current student, as well as Sherry Lovelace, who is an alumni. And again, we're going to kind of look at how we're emerging from COVID-19, how everybody's kind of slowly coming back to normal, I guess that's the new word, and really kind of touch on, that hot button issue of vaccines. The vaccines, some people feel like they came out too fast. We have 3 that are kind of neck and neck with each other, and how some people want to get the vaccine so they can, go out and do stuff, and then how some people maybe are nervous about the vaccine. So we're just going to kind of open it up to, how we're kind of reemerging from the current pandemic, how education's going to kind of open up its doors again, and, again, kind of approach that topic of the vaccines. So,
How did you choose the panelists for the upcoming event, the live event?
Well, the first one, I believe we advertised it on Facebook, and then we sent out emails, and we talked to committee members. So again, that kind of grassroots effort. The second panel, we communicated again with we asked some of the panelists if they could come back, and so we have a lot of returning members. And then I actually talked to some of the subcommittee members who are part of the
Common Read Selection
Thank-
Subcommittee.
Thank you. Yeah. We've been working a lot together, if you haven't noticed. A part of the subcommittee, so they were able to come on as well. And then, of course, sending out to, Tracy Cassida and then the grassroots effort again. So, yeah.
Okay. You all also advertised a contest. How is that going?
To be a challenge
Yeah.
right now, especially I think too we kind of launched it right around spring break, and I think that kind of didn't help. And then of course the fact that we don't have as many face-to-face classes going on right now, and if the people are doing things virtually, we do have a couple different submissions, and we now have one faculty submission. So we're excited though about it, and hopefully again things will start picking back up next semester and into the next academic year.
And that contest is still going on.
Yeah, it's still going on. I don't know when this is going to air. Probably will not. I don't know. Probably won't air it by the time our deadline is. But But
yeah, it's
for any of you guys.
Yeah, if you guys want to do it,
you're welcome to submit something.
But yeah, there's what was it? The gift card to Barnes & Noble, $50 gift card to Barnes & Noble, $25 gift basket to Baxter's, and then, of course, you get mentioned in the bridge. And submissions due April 9th.
Right.
I was like, maybe we should push it back a smidge, but I don't know. April's becoming the month of everything and deadlines. So...
So for the next Common Read, why should students be excited about it? What?
Well, Crucial Conversations was a bestseller, and like I said, the committee members and we all kind of just talked about how it's not something that the Common Read has done before. It's more of a technical book, and it's really. A couple of us felt that it just really seems appropriate for a lot of the discussions that are happening right now, especially with education opening its doors again, face-to-face, the whole George Floyd, the racism that's been going on, and obviously the vaccines, how some people want one, some people are nervous about it. So the thing I personally liked about Crucial Conversations is the fact that it kind of teaches you and it talks about how to approach those topics without sounding, rude or put off, and really kind of looks at listening, being empathetic, looking at other sides of the conversation, understanding other sides of the conversation, and really approaching it in more of a discussion and open moment instead of us versus them, which I feel like is going on right now. So
I feel like that mindset has completely taken over ever since the pandemic started, and then it just amplified with George Floyd. But that's just from my perspective.
I agree.
But yeah.
Well, it seems like this will be a very beneficial book for everybody to read, just to kind of be able to understand and appreciate different mindsets.
I agree. Yeah. And we're gonna kind of talk about. I guess this is. I was gonna say this is breaking news for you all, but we're gonna talk about it and officially announce it at our meeting tomorrow. Yeah. I had to be reminded that there's so many meetings going on in April. I'm like,
Nice. Well, thank you two ladies so much for stopping by and telling us all about the Common Read and for telling us the big announcement for next year's Common Read. So thank you.
no problem. Thank you. Yeah.
For more information on SEC's student newspaper, The Bridge, or the Gateway Video Podcast, email us at secthebridge@yahoo.com or contact one of the course advisors.
This is the Gateway signing out.
Okay. Here's a little knock-knock joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dwayne. Dwayne who? Dwayne the tub. I'm drowning.
Oh.